Good evening and welcome to the WDSU Hot Seat. I'm Travers Mackel. Tonight we are talking about a big topic that's been gripping this country since the pandemic started. It's hate against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in this country. Just a few days ago, President Joe Biden signed a bill into law, essentially giving more protections and calling for more investigations into these types of crimes. Joining us now, Betty Pei-Ching's son from the Human Rights Campaign, also a local business person here in New Orleans, and Cindy Nguyen, councilwoman from New Orleans for District E. First off, thank you all both being here talking about this very serious topic.
Thank you for having us, Travis.
Yes,
Thank
you for having us.
Yeah, Councilwoman Nguyen, we're going to get to you in a second. Let's start off with you, Ms. Sun. First off, your initial thoughts on the president signing this bill, obviously a key piece of legislation, something that's needed right now with what's happening across America, I take it.
It is absolutely integral and it is important. In the AAPI community, since the pandemic, we have faced two pandemics. Not only do we have to face the global pandemic, we also have to deal with the rising trend of hate crime attacks towards our community. And so this gives us hope and ensures the fact that we may be able to live in a world where equality will be the commonality.
The numbers are staggering. I think it's 6,600 crimes nationwide against Asian Americans since the pandemic started. Councilwoman Nguyen, when you hear something like that, obviously I know you support the president's legislation, but did something really need to be done when you see numbers like that?
Of course, Travis. I mean, it's alarming, and people should not have to live in those type of condition, and people should not be targeted because of their ethnicity. So, of course, I'm very alarmed with the number, but really glad that that President Biden has signed into law to protect and make sure that Asian communities are protected. And truthfully, Travis, all community of all ethnicities should be protected from any hate crimes.
What do you hear? You're exactly right with your last statement there. Let me just say that. But two, What are you hearing from people in that community in New Orleans? Were people fearful? Were people watching their backs, especially in light of the pandemic? What were you hearing in your community, Councilwoman Nguyen?
Yeah, I think in my community, particularly in the Mitchell area, people continue always on alert. I mean, with the rising crime in our neighborhood and in the city of New Orleans, so people already on alert. I don't know, and I haven't experienced, and I've interacted with many of the Vietnamese residents in the community. People are calm, but then very nervous in a way, but wanted to make sure that they're resilient, that they're paying attention to their surrounding like they've always been. But we've been a community that have integrated with other ethnicity in the neighborhood. And so I'm very blessed to see that integration between all of our minority communities in my district.
I'm going to have both of you all respond to this question. We'll start with you, Ms. Sun. New Orleans is looked at as an open city, a welcoming city. You have all walks of life. It's a city that's very friendly to minorities, to the LGBTQ community. When you hear about this situation and see only a handful of incidents in New Orleans, is it disheartening that this is happening in a place like New Orleans, or could happen in a place like New Orleans? Because I know you all are very passionate about this. New Orleans is looked at by a lot of people in this state and this region as a very welcoming place for all communities.
It is, and you're absolutely correct, Travers. As you know, I serve on the National Board of Governors for the Human Rights Campaign. And with our Municipal Equality Index, New Orleans, we've ranked 100% in the last year, 2 years actually. But our surrounding municipalities, such as Jefferson Parish, ranks 23%. So once you cross the parish line, you're in a whole different world. Let's not even mention Monroe or Alexandria or Baton Rouge. So the protection for LGBTQ or minorities in that sense is just not there. We live in a bubble. The crimes have not been have not been as prevalent, let me retract, as it is in other municipalities, but it is real. It is happening across our country. And it's not just against Asian Americans, which sadly, it's just been rising steadily across the board.
So does it frustrate you all that that Asian Americans are being targeted because of something like the coronavirus, which grew out of Wuhan, China? How frustrating of a topic is that people are misdirecting their anger and their hate at Asian Americans over a pandemic that's gripping this world right now? Is it frustrating not only to live out, but to go through, and for people in your communities to go through? If you want to start off on this one, Councilwoman Nguyen, and then we'll go to Ms. Sun again.
Yeah. So of course, it's really frustrating sometimes, but you know what, Travis, I continue to educate people, and that's the only way you could send a message out. It's constant education, but it is, and people receive information differently. And I feel like as a council member from my district is to continue to educate people about the right thing. And we're going to continue to do that and to make sure that people are not targeted because of their ethnicity.
Can the rest of the state, Ms. Sun, learn from the city of New Orleans, and as accepting as the city of New Orleans is in this state? I know that a lot of people feel there's a big divide between New Orleans and the rest of the state. You just touched on it, but can a lot of other stakeholders in this state learn from things that New Orleans has done for minority communities?
Definitely. I think that as a nation, a melting pot of a nation in its whole, it is important that we treat everyone equally. And it actually saddens me that we need to have a bill that protects any ethnicity or any race for that matter. We as a country should really be equality across the board. And that's how I believe at the core. So the mere fact that we have to put this into law saddens me, but it does give me hope that we are moving in the right direction as a nation, and that we are recognizing where the gaps are and that needs to be filled. And so I think that with education, and I agree with Councilwoman there, that it is the key to uniting against hate.
So let's talk about the legislation. It puts a lot more teeth in for the federal government to really pursue hate crimes, to really pursue people that target Asian Americans or Pacific Islanders. Is this a shot across the bow, if you will? We have not, thankfully, had the numbers in New Orleans that other major metropolitan cities have seen, especially places like California or even in the East Coast like New York. But I'll start this off with you, Councilwoman Nguyen. Is this good to know that, look, if something like that does happen here, we all hope that it doesn't, but if there is a handful of incidents here, that you do have the power of the federal government to really pursue people that would do harm against Asian Americans? That, not that anybody wasn't doing that before, but it really has some teeth in it now.
Yeah, and you're right, Travis, and we got to continue to make sure that it doesn't happen in New Orleans. I think a lot of the advocacy groups of reforms that we're doing in the city of New Orleans, as Betty has mentioned, we're like a really fun, we love people, we want to engage, and we got to continue to educate others about different ethnicity so we don't have those type of crime happening in our city. But having this law put in place does provide protection, does provide some sort of, if unfortunately if it happens, then there's some sort of protection for those individuals. But again, everybody should be able to live in a world without being discriminated or being targeted because of their ethnicity.
You're absolutely right, Ms. Sun. If you could weigh in on that. The good thing is it hasn't happened in high numbers here in Metro New Orleans. But if it does, is it good knowing that if anything does happen here bad, the power of the federal government's there to really punish people who are responsible?
It does give me a sense of relief, although part of the bill puts the burden out on our law enforcement, which in Orleans Parish is already overburdened, as we all know. And in addition to that, they have to apply for a federal grant for this assistance. But I think that the mere fact of this bill signing encourages us as a cultural AAPI community, as a culture where we've been raised since a young age to be diligent, be quiet, put in the hard work, and make sure we are a positive contributing factor of our society without a voice. That I think this bill actually helps elevate our voice, which is important for our community.
No, I agree. I think it was a bipartisan bill. There are very few things that go through bipartisan in Washington, D.C.
Correct.
right now, especially in the political climate. I think this obviously has the support of Republican, Democrat, and everybody else up on the Hill, and obviously here in the city of New Orleans. We could probably talk a long time about this. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Betty Pei-Ching-Sun with Human Rights Campaign, also local business owner. We appreciate your time. And Councilwoman Cindy Nguyen from District E in the city of New Orleans. Of course, we appreciate your time. Anybody watching this can see the entire segment online starting tomorrow. And of course, make sure to follow WDSU as we continue to cover important topics like this on our daily newscast. Once again, Ms. Sun and Councilwoman Nguyen, we appreciate your time.
Thank you, Travers.